Leadership can be viewed in many different ways. One way leadership can be seen is the way people guide and direct others. I'm Mallory Stegman from McNary Central High School, and today I'm here to talk to you about what makes a great leader and the ways I myself am a great leader and the ways I need to improve. A good leader first prioritizes their own intelligence and abilities by knowing their strengths and weaknesses. After focusing on themselves, they can then help others. As they learn others' strengths and weaknesses, they can adequately put them to use. Leaders should also encourage others to think outside of the box in order to strengthen their abilities. I am a leader at school, church, cheer, and many other areas. I noticed in different situations there were better ways I could have handled them. I began to look at my leadership abilities through the FCCLA Leadership Self-Survey. I myself didn't see where I could grow, so I reached out to friends. Then began the planning. I had 3 of my friends fill out surveys found on the FCCLA student portal. After receiving their feedback, I then decided to work on this project. I set a goal of finding 3 different areas that I needed to improve on. Then, turning back to my friends, I asked for them to find 3 things I needed to improve on and 3 things that I did well. After receiving back the data, I then organized it from the before and after. I chose one area from each friend's list to work on. The 3 I picked were sharing my opinion, raising my self-confidence, and increasing my attention span. After deciding on my 3 areas of improvement, I began to find different ways to achieve my goals. Article after article I searched for the best ways for me. Finally, I had created a list of different techniques to improve each skill. I then needed to find a place to practice these techniques. I decided on my lab group. There, I was surrounded by friends who were there to support me. I informed each of my friends of the project, and they were glad to help. After receiving their support, I gave each of them a list of the different areas I needed to improve on and the ways they could help. In group settings, I get scared to voice my own opinion in order to save myself from creating conflict. This is not always the best quality to have. So in order for me to overcome my fears, I created a list of 3 introductory phrases. Each time I wanted to voice my opinion to my lab group, I would start with one of them. I think that, I believe that, and as I see it. I started off small with simple suggestions and worked my way to bigger ideas. I was not always the best in the beginning, but my friends were there to help and pushed me along. As I grew more comfortable with this step, I then started branching out from the 3 phrases and creating my own. Self-confidence has always been a struggle for me, but when I started my competitive cheer, I grew more confident. Though I had more confidence, I was still holding back in settings with new people. I had never really noticed this until a friend pointed it out. To boost my confidence, I began small with my lab group, speaking up and being more communicative. As my confidence grew, I moved on to a larger setting. This was English class. The teacher is always asking questions, so it seemed the perfect way for me to practice. My friend Laurel, who sits in front of me, was aware of my project and was glad to help me. In the beginning, I would often say the answer, but rather quietly so no one could hear. Laurel would nudge me to be louder, and soon I was answering questions left and right. I'm still working on speaking up in even larger groups. Giving this speech is just another step in the right direction. For my final area, I chose to increase my attention span. Sadly, I did have a rather short attention span. I did get distracted pretty easily. In group settings that were more hands-on, I could stay focused longer, but still not long enough. So I found 4 different ways to help. Drinking cold water, chewing gum, asking questions, and taking breaks. When working on homework or in group settings where I was able, I would set a 15 to 30 minute timer and take 5-minute breaks. This was a great help. This was not always possible though, so in those times, drinking cold water, chewing gum, and asking questions were the best way. I've started carrying a water bottle with me to school every day, and I also try to have gum on hand, but I'm rather forgetful when I run out. Chewing gum keeps my mind focused on an action so that I can focus on the work in front of me. One of the ways I've been able to use the same tactic is a hair tie. I twirl it on my fingers and fold it in all sorts of ways. Asking questions is another way I can help stay on track. By coming up with simple questions, I am able to stay more involved in the class. My attention span has increased due to these efforts, but it's still not where I would like it to be. So I plan on trying other techniques in the future to help. During the course of this project, I faced one main challenge: myself. It seemed every time the only thing truly holding me back was myself. In order to grow, I had to first overcome my own fears, such as with my lab group. The main reason I never spoke up for my opinion was I was afraid of being judged or hurting their feelings, which was untrue. They were more than kind to me, and we would work through the different options together. I was always scared to speak up for the fear of being wrong, so my self-confidence was suffering. All it took was a gentle push from a friend to help me place in the right direction, and after the first time, it kept getting easier. I would have those days though where I'd forget my water bottle, or I didn't have any gum, and I would think all hope was lost. But my friends wouldn't let me stop. If they noticed I was daydreaming, a simple shoulder nudge helped get me back on track. No one was able to help me better than my mom, since she is a strong leader in many different areas. She made for a great role model. Her job is as a sales rep for a packaging company, and she shows great leadership while working with customers to give them the best quality possible. My mom is strong and walks with confidence in her work and herself. She's never afraid to voice her opinion. I've always looked up to her, especially when seeking help for this project. While I was working towards the end of my project, I began to burn out. She noticed this and would remind me of what I was working towards. I still have a semi-short attention span, and finishing my portfolio and this speech proved a challenge. She was sure to help me and keep me on track, and reminding me of the tactics I had learned along the way. After finishing the skills work, I asked two of my lab partners, Abigail and Kendall, for their opinions on my growth. I thought, who better to ask than my lab partners, since they were alongside with me for the bulk of my project. Kendall wrote that she noticed a change in my speaking, and while Abigail noted the changes in my phrases from just the 3 to creating my own. Both mentioned my plan to boost my confidence, start small, and work my way up. While working on my attention span, Abigail was a great help in keeping me on track. When she noticed I started to drift off, she would nudge me and remind me to stay back where I was. Asking more questions was what Kendall noticed I did the most. Overall, both wrote of different ways that I worked to improve, but both ended in saying that I had improved really well. Working on this project, I found 3 different areas in my leadership skills that needed improvement: stating my opinion more, increasing my self-confidence, and growing my attention span. I created a list of ways to improve in each area: drinking water, chewing gum, asking questions, using introductory phrases, and starting small and working my way to larger settings were just some of the tactics I used. Without the help of family and friends, I never would have been able to reach my goal. There is still room for improvement, but I will continue to work for those, and I'm glad with my results.